Hey, I'm Caley Alyssa, and you found yourself at Yoga for Beginners. So this is a really good practice to try out if you've never done yoga before in your life, or if you've had just a few classes. It's also a great class if you're an advanced practitioner to return to, just to work on the fundamentals and the basics of the practice. So I really recommend having some props. I've got a strap here. You could use a belt, a rope, even a t-shirt, whatever you have handy that's long that you can grab hold of. And then I also have 2 blocks. Now, if you don't have blocks at home, you could use a really thick book or magazine, just maybe 2 magazines, anything that you've got that might kind of equal to this size. So have those things handy because you'll probably want to be using them throughout this practice. So I'm just going to have mine here at the top of my mat, and I can get to them in a few moments. So we're going to start in a forward fold position. So I'm going to have you come to stand kind of near the top of your yoga mat. You'll have your feet separated hips distance, and then you'll take a gentle bend into your knees, and from here fold forward. Generally, if you haven't done yoga before, you might live in a pretty tight body. So go ahead and grab opposite elbows if your hands don't touch the ground. Once you've got opposite elbows, let your head hang heavy, and you can just kind of shake out your head, sway your torso from side to side. And I like to play around here with the weight distribution of my feet. So I'm moving from the heels to the toes, and from the outer edges of the feet to the inner arches of the feet. And just kind of move back and forth a few times, letting your hamstrings open up and your low back open up as you're here. And you might even switch the cross of the arms, bringing the opposite forearm in front. And then from this position, take your hands, place them on your shins. And as you inhale, see if you could find a flat back, keeping a little bend in your knees if needed. And then on your exhale, gently fold forward. We'll do that 2 more times. Inhale to your flat back. Exhaling, fold. And 1 more time. Inhale, flat back. And exhaling, fold. Now bend your knees as much as you need in order to get your hands down onto the ground. From here, we'll step the left foot all the way to the back of the yoga mat and drop the left knee down onto the ground, untucking the back toes. Now, if you have a block, go ahead and grab one of your blocks here. We're gonna wedge it underneath the back thigh. So as you can see, the block is on a diagonal line, and my sticky mat grips the block so that I don't have to worry about it being stable. Once the mat and the block are connected and your thigh is supported, you can walk your hands up to your front knee. Now notice my front knee is stacked directly over my ankle. It's not behind it, and it's definitely not in front of it. This is putting too much stress on my ankle and my knee joint. So once I find that stacking position, hands resting on top of the knee and thigh, I'm going to sink the weight into the block on the floor and really push down into the shin and the top of my back foot. So I can feel my hips descending a little bit, and from there you can lift your low belly in and up, stabilizing your lower back. Once you've got that, if you feel stable, you can reach your arms up overhead. Now watch that your arms aren't really spread open wide. See if you could turn your pinky finger in and your thumb out, and then we gotta find the breath here. So once you've run through all those things you have to focus on your body, it's really important to cue the breath. So see if you could slow down your breathing. Maybe match the length of the inhale to the length of the exhale. And we'll take 1 more breath here. And on your exhale, we'll gently release your hands down to the yoga mat. So remove the block. You could just set it to the side for now. Tuck your back toes under. Step all the way forward to the top of the mat, keeping a bend in your knees. On your inhale, find that flat back, fingers to your shins. And as you exhale, place your hands down and step your right foot all the way to the back of your yoga mat. Dropping the right knee down, untucking the toes. Ensure that your left knee is stacked directly over the left foot. Then go ahead and grab your block, wedge it underneath the thigh between the sticky mat and the knee. Once you've got that stability here, then you can walk your hands up to your front thigh, pushing down into the thigh to draw your belly in and up as you let your hips descend towards the yoga mat. So you're putting a lot of weight in this front leg and into that front right thigh. You should feel your hip flexor getting a stretch here. maybe a little bit of your groin and the inner thigh as well. If you feel stable, go ahead and reach your arms up. Find your breath here. So remember, see if you can keep the back leg pretty active, pushing the top of the back foot down into the ground, pushing that back shin down into the ground. Finding your breath. We'll take one more inhale. And then on the exhale, go ahead and release your hands all the way down to the ground. Again, just take that block, set it to the side, remove it for now. So we'll be moving into downward facing dog, which as a beginner can be slightly challenging. Once you do this pose enough, it'll eventually turn into a resting pose for you. So tuck your back right toes under, plant your hands down on the mat, and step your left foot back to meet the right foot, keeping a bend in your knees. You want to move the weight out of the hands into the legs. So you lift your hips up and back as much as possible. If you live in a really tight body, you'll need to keep a bend in the knees. If you have a little bit more space in your hamstrings and low back, you can work your legs towards straight, but only if you're not rounding into your spine. So I'm going to keep a little bend in my knees today. Making sure my shoulders aren't collapsing in towards my neck. I find a gentle external rotation of the shoulders, and I really activate my hands, pushing into the pointer finger and thumb. Now from your down dog, go ahead and just bring your knees down to the mat for a moment, keeping your toes tucked. So I want you to go ahead and look at your hands and make sure they're not turned in. If the hands are turned in, then the elbows will bend and stick out, which means my shoulders are going to collapse in. So I'm going to try to turn my fingers out a little so my triceps can firm in, which means if my elbows bend, they're going to bend back, not out. So my shoulders will stay externally rotated, and that's what we want in this position. So once you've found your hands and your arms, keeping the toes tucked, see if you could just come right back into your downward facing dog, pushing the hips back, keeping those arms really active, and maybe even working your legs a little bit straighter, keeping that micro bend in the knees. Let's take 3 breaths here. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out from the mouth. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out from the mouth. One more. Breathe in through your nose. Breathe out through your mouth. Now from down dog, inhale, come forward into a plank position. So come forward until your shoulders stack right over your wrist. And then on your exhale, we'll push right back into down dog with bent knees. We'll do this a few times together. Inhale slowly, come forward into plank. And then exhale, push right back into your down dog, keeping the knees bent. Let's do 3 more like that. Inhale. And exhale. 2 more. Inhale. And exhale. And then last time, inhale. We'll stay in plank position on the exhale. Drop your knees down to the mat. And then slowly untuck your toes. Bend your elbows so that they point back towards your body. And from this position, you'll lower your chin and your chest down onto the mat. So with the chin and the chest, we'll slowly slide forward onto the belly, making sure the toes stay untucked back behind you. And then really engage your legs, push down into the tops of your feet. From here, let's take our hands off of the yoga mat, sort of out to the side, and tent up onto the fingertips. You'll lift your elbows up to the ceiling. We're going to push down into the fingertips. As you inhale, lift your head and your chest up off the mat. Push your hips down into the mat. And then on your exhale, we'll come right back down. So we'll do this a few times, working on the back strength and a little bit of back bending. Breathe in, slowly rise up. And then breathe out, come back down. Keeping those legs really active. Breathe in, come up. Breathe out, come down. And then last time, breathe in, lift up. And we'll stay lifted on the exhale. So I'm going to test you here. I want you to see if you can lift your hands up off your yoga mat. And if you can do that, that tells me that you're engaging the muscles of your back. Now, make sure you're not fiercely clenching your butt cheeks. If you do that, your toes will turn out, your feet will turn out, and that will crunch the low back space. So relax into the glutes, fire up your hamstrings, make sure the feet are not turning out, and then a little bit more of a challenge. Can you begin to lift your feet, your legs off the mat from the big toe side of your foot? So you're finding an internal rotation in your legs. You're using the muscles of the back body to hold you up. Breathe here for 3, 2, and 1, gently release. Okay, we're gonna push back into child's pose. So you'll bring your hips back to your heels, spread your knees open wide, and as you push back, your arms stay reaching forward in front of you, your forehead comes down to the ground. This is a resting pose. So we're gonna take about 3 breaths in child's pose. Make sure that you're relaxed completely, so your elbows are softening onto the mat. No muscles have to work here. Just completely sink into the position. Breathe in. And breathe out. 2 more like that. Breathe in. And breathe out. And last time, breathe in. And breathe out. We're going to slowly shift forward onto your hands and knees in tabletop position. Tuck your toes under, and we'll return into downward facing dog. Now from down dog, look forward at your hands and walk your feet all the way up towards your hands. You can bend your knees as much as you need. Bring your hands to your hips, finding a flat back, keeping a little bend in the knees, and then really slowly engage your core, come all the way up to standing. All right, once you get there, we're gonna turn to face the side of the yoga mat, and then spread your legs wide and your arms wide. So look down and make sure that your feet are about underneath where the palms of your hands are. That's how long you want your stance to be. We're coming into a position called Warrior 2, which is really good work for the lower body, as well as opening for the hips. So I'll start by externally rotating my right foot. From here, I'll angle the back left toes in slightly on a diagonal. Now I want my left hip to be pointed on that same diagonal line as my back toes are pointed. And then I want my torso to square to the side of the mat, so I'm actually using my oblique muscles to help support me here. Then I'll slowly begin to bend into the front knee, making sure that it tracks directly over my second toe on that front foot. So in Warrior 2, your front knee is going to want to collapse in, especially if you have tight hips. So see if you could gently work your front knee open, stack it directly over the ankle, and as this knee opens, this hip, the front hip, should be firming in. The back leg is just as strong as the front, so make sure you're pushing into the outer edge of your back foot. Your arms are wide and strong. Now, once you've found the position again, we want to return to the breath. See if you can find an ease in your breathing. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. One more like that. Breathe in. And breathe out. Now look at your front foot. Push into the big toe mound of the front foot to gently straighten your front leg. From here, we'll be coming into triangle position, so you'll want to have one of your blocks handy. Okay, the legs are exactly the same alignment. Back toes turned in, front leg is straight this time. The block will be outside of your front foot. From here, I reach my arms out wide. On the inhale, I'm going to reach out to my right fingertips, and as I do that, my right hip moves back. So the right side of my body stays really long. I'm not rounding it or contracting it in any way. Then I'll go ahead and gently place my right hand down on the block and reach my left arm straight out to the ceiling. So the block can be at whatever level you want it. You can have it at the low level, the mid level, or the high level. I'm going to put mine on the mid. Now in triangle position, you're working on rotating from your mid torso and your mid thoracic spine. So your oblique muscles are actually firing here. See if you could imagine the front foot, the heel of that front foot getting a little bit lighter, like I could slide a sheet of paper underneath your heel. That's going to push your calf muscle forward into your shin, and it's going to activate the leg just a little bit more. Make sure your bottom shoulder isn't collapsing forward. Gently roll it open. Couple more breaths. Breathe in and breathe out. Okay, we'll slowly come back up to standing. Just take your block with you. Turn your right toes in, turn your left toes out. So we'll be coming to warrior two on the second side. Just have your block handy for our triangle pose outside of that front foot. Okay, once you make sure that your hips are on a diagonal, the same diagonal line as your back foot, square your torso to the side, and then bend into the front knee until the knee stacks directly over the ankle. All right, so remember on that warrior two, the front knee is going to want to collapse in a little bit, so just gently push it out, firm your hip in, see if you could sink a little deeper. Breathe in, and breathe out. Okay, breathe in, and breathe out. 2 more breaths like that, breathe in, breathe out. Last time, breathe in, and breathe out. Okay, look at your front foot. Push into the big toe mound to gently straighten the front leg. Reach out through your left fingertips, drawing your left hip back as you reach forward. So you're keeping the length in the left side of the waist. And then gently take your hand, place it onto the block, making sure you're not hyperextending your front knee. By gently finding that tiny bit of a lift under the front heel, imagine your calf muscle pushing forward into the shin on that front foot. My top arm is reaching up, my torso is twisting, and then come back to your breath. So you can run these loops, right? All the little shifts and adjustment that you can make in your body. Once you've done a full loop, you just go through it again over and over as many times as you need to. But sometimes we just have to feel the pose and shut that loop off. So that means you can just kind of come back to your breath and forget about all the instructions and just notice how that pose actually feels on your body and in your body. And if you need to tweak anything from there, then go ahead and tweak it. Let's take one more inhale. Okay, and on the exhale, we're gonna windmill that top arm all the way down to the yoga mat. Bend into your front knee and come onto your back toes, just setting the block to the side. Step back and drop the knees down into a tabletop position. From here, we'll shift our hips over to one side, taking the legs out in front of us. And then we'll take the hands behind the back, turn your fingers out just slightly. So your feet are hips distance and parallel. You'll push down into the feet to slowly begin to lift your hips up. Now, as the hips lift, make sure you're not again squeezing your butt cheeks. You'll know because your knees will be turned out and your toes will be turned out. See if you can relax into the glutes a little. Stamp down into your heels to lift the hips, and then push down into your hands to lift the chest and the sternum. It should feel really good in the shoulders. Breathe in, and breathe out. One more time, breathe in, and breathe out. Slowly bring your hips down to the mat, and then turn to face the center of the mat. So we'll finish here with a little bit of a hip stretch. So you'll find easy pose, or Sukhasana. This is also lovingly referred to as crisscross applesauce. See if you could cross your legs mid-calf or mid-shin as opposed to at the ankles, right? So you want a little bit of a deeper cross, flexing into your feet. And then with your feet flexed, reach your arms up, take a big breath. And then on your exhale, you'll hinge slowly from your hips, bringing your hands towards the ground. So if you're already feeling a stretch, you're just gonna hang out here, pushing your hips back and down into the mat behind you. If you need a little bit more of a stretch, you can walk your fingertips further forward and let your head hang heavy. You could even grab a block and rest your forehead on your block just to help yourself get a little more comfy in this position. Okay, once you arrive, again, come back to your breath. So find your inhales and your exhales and see if you can slow them down a bit. And then slowly walk your hands back up. Take the hands behind your back. We're gonna uncross the legs, recross them so the opposite shin is in front. Again, you wanna cross mid-calf as opposed to at the ankles, and then flex into the feet so they're supported. Reach your arms up, inhale. Exhale, hinge forward. When you need to, you bring those hands down. Walk them forward to whatever extent works for you. Push your hips back and down into the mat behind you. Maybe using the block to rest your forehead on. And also just acknowledging you might be very different on one side compared to the other side, and that's absolutely okay. So if you're a little tighter on the first side or the second side, just honoring that as opposed to pushing through it and trying to make them even. So find your breath whenever you get there. All right, and then we'll slowly come back up. You can just set the block over to the side. So we'll finish our practice in a comfortable, easy position, resting the hands on the knees, just with a little seated centering. Go ahead and close your eyes, sit up tall. And just let all the benefits of your practice flood through your body, being aware and receptive to those benefits. They could be physical, they could be energetic, they could be spiritual. Whatever it is that came up for you in your practice. And then go ahead and bring your hands to your heart, bow your chin down to your chest. Great work today, you guys. Come on up and look forward. You can rest those hands down on your knees. So hopefully you enjoyed the practice. This is a really good one to start out with, again, yoga for beginners. And you can return to this practice as many times as you need to. If something was challenging for you and you didn't get it, that's fine. Just rewind, do it again and again and again until it makes sense in your body. And with that, I'm not with you at home in your living room doing this with you, so if there's something that doesn't feel right, that doesn't feel good, then listen to your body. Don't do it, or adjust, modify so that it does feel good. Good luck. We'll see you back here next time.